So, so today we'll be first talk about, some background about AI. Will be very introductory level, but sort of give you the sense what AI is defined in the more, technical or computer science field. But obviously, actually, we will be looking into it in a more high level way. But before that, any questions on the syllabus? Um, so I will be recording it on Zoom, and you can find the link on the website here. So if anything happen, you cannot attend the class, just hop on Zoom. You don't need to let me know. Um, you know, in case anything happen. Otherwise, pretty much everything will be on the syllabus, the website. But any important announcement will be sent by emails. We'll soon have our homework. I'll put a link here, but I'll also send an email, and there should be the link here as well. And you should have get an invitation on Gradescope. So check your email or just hop on Gradescope that you can find the class there. We'll be using Gradescope for all the assignment submission and also grading and regrade request. So sort of like everything that need to be graded will be on Gradescope, and that's the only thing. We don't have Canvas or something else. And I think I haven't set up the Google Space yet, but we'll have a Google Space that you can ask questions. That should be easier to manage than other platform. Cool. Any questions on syllabus? Cool. If not, then we will just start. So just a quick recap what we've been talking about last week. So we sort of like started from what music and AI is, and here are some examples that you can see how AI is being used in music in a more applied way on stage or in the composition or even in the VR scenario. So these are more broader application scenarios that you can see how AI can be used in music. We've also talked about some of the state of the art. So Suno AI version 4, I actually tried it again during the weekend, and now it's getting better and better. But somehow it's getting boring and even more boring and boring, more and more boring again and again over time. And that's something that I observe for all the AI generation model. Like if you go to Adobe Firefly to generate images, nowadays it generate very high quality images, but it's just not fun anymore. I feel like. So I guess that's also one of the interesting thing about Gen AI tools for content creation. We are always sort of like striking the balance between sort of like perfect replication or something that's like just average as contrast to something that we want to sort of like explore the boundary of your sort of like data. So, think about genre, think about music, you have different genres. It will be interesting when you generate something that's sort of like in the boundary of genres rather than, sort of like the centroid of the genre. So this is something we will discuss in the class that, there's sort of that contradiction of machine learning being sort of like predicting the average or predicting the most probable outcome. But in creative applications, we are looking for ways to sort of like test the limit or sort of like want to break the system or examine the boundaries. So that's sort of the thing that we are observing in current Gen AI trend, that when the model getting better and better, it sort of become less interesting. But you then have to sort of like bring the human agency back, or add some more controls into it so that it can generate something that's in addition to human creativity, rather than just replicating boring routines for you. So we also talk about, so this is Suno, and this is from Google. So this is a Music FX. You can sort of like do the same thing. You can just hit generate. You need to log into your Google account. I think they just want to prevent you from scamming or flooding the whole service, but it's pretty much free to use. I don't know how long it will last, but for now it's sort of like free to use. And we have Music FX DJ, sort of pretty much the same thing, but DJ is sort of like doing this endless streaming of music. That's sort of like a continuous stream of music that you can sort of like control different keywords that it will sort of like morph from one to another. And this is interesting because Jacob Collier has done a very interesting session to use music FX DJ to create a new composition. So highly recommend that you check it out. Has anyone want to check it out? Nope. Anyway, I mean, if you find time and have like 2 hours, or you can think about like working with Jacob Collier, just put it at the side of your second monitor and you just do your stuff. It's pretty interesting to see how they work with Music FX DJ. And the final thing we talk about is Movie Gen, which is from Meta, another tech company. But Meta in general, more interested in metaverse, VR, and video to audio-ish thing. So Movie Gen basically just do video generation, but they also do video to audio generation. Any questions on this stuff that we talked about last week? Cool. So today, we will mainly be talking about AI. So sort of try to scope what we mean by AI, even though, over the time you will see that AI just keep changing its definition, sort of. But this is one of the clip that I like about AI. Let me pull it up. No sound. Let me check.
Murder's a new trick for a robot. Congratulations. Respond.
What does this action signify? As you entered, when you looked at the other human, what does it mean?
It's a sign of trust. It's a human thing. You wouldn't understand.
My father tried to teach me human emotions. They are difficult.
You mean you're a designer?
Yes.
So why'd you murder him?
I did not murder Dr. Lanning.
Want to explain why you were hiding at the crime scene?
I was frightened.
Robots don't feel fear. They don't feel anything. They don't get hungry. They don't sleep.
I do. I have even had dreams.
Human beings have dreams. Even dogs have dreams, but not you. You are just a machine. An imitation of life. Can a robot write a symphony? Can a robot turn a canvas into a beautiful masterpiece?
Can you?
Well, that's to give a sense what AI is. We always sort of like asking AI to do whatever thing, but think about our human ability that we are sort of, not built for everything. Um, so that brings us to the question of what is AI? Actually, has anyone watched this movie? Cool. I now realize it's sort of like old. But it's like 20 years ago. Yeah, maybe before some of you was born. But anyway, it's interesting to see that now this has become older and older over time. But it's still relevant in terms of the setup. Um, anyway, so what is AI? So over the past, people have sort of like tried to define what AI is, even before all of these recent development that sort of like brought mind even beyond what we could think about what AI could do, sort of like in the 50 years ago. Not working. So here are some of the definitions that uh we see in the past. So some of that is like thinking about that define AI as a systems that think like humans. So make computers things, machines with minds, and the automation of activities that we associate with human thinking. And so the core here is that AI need to think and in the way that how human thinks. But there are also some other definition that focus on how the system act rather than thinking. We will talk about the difference between thinking and acting later, but that sort of think about perform functions that require intelligence when performed by people, and also do things at which at the moment people are better. There are also some other definition of AI that doesn't involve humans. So it's sort of like, we can sort of define intelligent behavior and think about AI as systems that just think rationally. So it's like mental faculties through the use of computational models. You will know that there's no definition of what that means, and it doesn't relate it. It's not related to human like thinking. It can be something else. It just needs to be intelligent, and we have to define what intelligence is, but it doesn't need to be human-like. And also, make it possible to perceive, reason, and act. And it doesn't need to be human-like. And finally, it's also, thinking versus acting, explain and emulate intelligent behavior. You do necessarily need thinking in terms of computational processes, and also finally, automation of just intelligent behavior. So, it's sort of something like this, to put it into comic, we have on the x-axis where we have like, it has to be sort of like human-like. But at the right, it's just like, we just look at what AI does and whether it's showing some intelligent behavior. And on the y-axis, we talk about, whether we need the system to think like humans, or we just look at its behavior, its functions, its features, how it interact with the environment, and we want it to act like human or just act rationally. Any questions so far? We will dive into what that means and sort of give you a sense what the scope of the AI research is about. Cool. So, on the x-axis, actually on the y-axis, we can see that there are thinking versus acting. So this is a very interesting line of thought that has been there, I believe, more than 300 years or 500 years even, or maybe thousands of years. So I guess one of the things that we could start is to think about this very interesting work about the Turk. So this is a very interesting, I would say, invention in 1770. So this is, they call it, an intelligent chess player. So we can look at the video here to see what it is. So basically it's a robot that can play chess, and they claim it to be, automatic. Let me click this. Much easier to just, this is a recreation of a movie that sort of like show what that is. So this is the thing. That you sort of get a sense what it is like. They basically build a robot and, sort of show you that there's nothing inside, even though we will see what's inside later. But, at that time, they just bring this machine, device, robot, the Turk, around the world and compete with several different, chess grandmasters, and they've actually beaten a lot of master. But basically they are claiming that, this is sort of like the AI thing. But to be honest, what's happening inside this interesting device is that there's actually some chess master hidden inside it, and that's someone who are really good at chess playing, but it's not, well known to the world. So what's happening inside this box is actually there's someone hidden inside it, and they try to sort of like control the chess robot, and to sort of like give you the sense that this is like a AI intelligent behavior. So we can look at what it's like inside.
At Harbor Freight, we do business differently from the others.
This is the Turk, a mechanical chess-playing robot from the 1700s that was basically behind the Turk. As it turned out, the Turk wasn't automated at all, and was, in fact, operated by a chess master hidden inside the machine at all times. The fake machinery and the bottom drawer didn't extend all the way to the back of the cabinet, and so there was space for the operator to sit with his legs stretched out under a fake floor. Before the left door was opened, the operator would slide forward on a movable chair into the main compartment, closing behind him a secret door. The presenter would then open the rear door and show the audience that there was nothing but machinery inside. As the presenter closed the rear door, the operator would slide back into his original position, closing another door behind him and in front of him. The presenter would then open up the front and rear doors to the main compartment to allow the audience to see inside. Having seen right through the whole machine, the audience would now have full belief that no one could be hidden inside the machine. The doors were then locked, and the Turk was ready to come to life. Position, closing another door behind him and in front of him. The presenter would then open up the front and rear doors to the main compartment to allow the audience to see inside. Having seen right through the whole machine, the audience would now have full belief that no one could be hidden inside the machine. The doors were then locked, and the Turk was ready to come to life. The operator would slide back into the main compartment and open a hidden door inside the Turk's body, revealing a candle, a chessboard, and a mechanical lever which would control the Turk's arm. The lever was in fact a clever pantograph mechanism, using strings that would mimic the exact movements of the Turk's arm. It had a pointer, which the operator could lift to raise the arm and twist to close the Turk's fingers. By moving the pointer over the chessboard, it would move the Turk's hand over the exact same square on the real chessboard. But how did the operator see the moves his opponent was making? Above the operator was a fake ceiling that could be taken down to reveal the bottom of the real chessboard. Under each square was a small magnet dangling from a copper wire. The chess pieces themselves also had magnets in their base, and so the magnets would get pulled up wherever there was a chess piece. As his opponent picked up a chess piece, the corresponding magnet would drop and wobble for about 30 seconds, allowing the operator to see what piece had moved and replicate it on his own chessboard. To this day, the original operator of the Turk is unknown, but during Metzel's tours, the machine was operated by an impressive list of chess masters, all of whom kept their part of the secret.
Yep. So this sort of, brought us to a very interesting question about, what we are actually looking for, and, an AI system, the intelligent behavior, or rather inside the box, what it's actually thinking. Does it has to be, a sort of like a predefined rules, or, what a bunch of instructions, or does it has to be a program? But rather here is this a human hiding inside the box, and we sort of under the assumption, without knowing what's inside, we sort of like imagine this machine to be AI. So, this is one of the way that people have been debating about what's intelligent, what's AI. So one of the most famous tests that people have proposed is Turing test by Alan Turing in 1950. So you probably might have heard of it. And, if you're interested, you can also look at the Imitation Game. The movie is really good. It touched on different topics of it. But anyway, Turing test in its core, or more standard setup. Originally, it's not like this, but nowadays, how people think about it is in this way. So we have a human and an AI system, and we sort of like block it away from the observer or interrogator. So the interrogator would just ask questions, to these two systems without knowing who they are. And these, the human and the AI will just respond. And so based on this, sort of like compressed or constrained communication between the interrogator and the two players, the interrogator has to decide which one is human, which one is an AI. And so if an AI system can pass this test, then we code it, as, it passed the Turing test. So Turing test is a way that sort of under this constraint scenario that can look at what an AI is and look at how AI behave, and sort of also want to decipher what AI is thinking. And so this is just judged by the responses to the written questions only. Any questions so far? Oh, good. So this brings us further into the next very interesting thought experiment about AI. So, now we are sort of still thinking about what is thinking, what is acting. Does AI need to think like humans to be intelligent, or it just need to behave, intelligent? So this is another very interesting thought experiment, which is called the Chinese room. So the setup is like this. There's a box, a room, where inside it, there's a human that doesn't know anything about Chinese, but somehow she can write in Chinese. and there's a robot or a program or whatever something that can sort of like perfectly translate English into Chinese, and perfectly translate between English and Chinese. So, then the behavior of this room, when you sort of like observe it from the outside, is like you can talk in Chinese, say something in Chinese, do you speak Chinese? And you will sort of like send it input as the Chinese characters into the black box, the Chinese room. And then, this agent, this intelligent device or some program will sort of like figure out some rules that you can sort of like turn Chinese into English, and then sort of like do English back to Chinese, and then give the human a perfect response to output. And then you send the output back, say, yes, I speak fluent Chinese. And then, do you know what AI is? The next input. And then again, you will send to that perfect translator. And then the human will sort of like write it up. I don't know, what is AI? So this sort of like thought experiment is to think about, what's the main component of intelligence? Is the human being intelligent here, or is the translator or the program being intelligent here? Or is the whole room is having intelligent behavior, but does it actually have that intelligence? Is this considered intelligence? And then if you switch these two players, now, there's some human just doing that dictionary look up, and there's another, AI just do the Chinese output, letter writing. So this is sort of like the Turk setup, that you have someone know how to play chess, and then you sort of like simulate it with a robot output. And then people will think about that robot has the intelligence, but it's actually the human inside it having the intelligence. So this is also the same as this scenario. So this brings us to the question of, I think it's still an ongoing debate, and it's a philosophical question, that what defines intelligence? And so, one way to define it is that these robots has to think like human does, or, it has to think. But the other alternative definition is that it just need to act like an intelligent creature, I guess. So, that's the sort of the y-axis, and on the x-axis we have that human-like thing. So this is sort of like bring us to this. Again, can a robot write a symphony? Can a robot take a blank canvas and turn it into a masterpiece? Can you? So we always sort of like, at the beginning of AI, we sort of always have that human behaviors and human nature inside it. So think about deep learning, deep neural network. What is it neural network? Even though nowadays these deep neural network has sort of like little to do with human brain, but it's sort of like inspired originally, say 50 years ago, by human brain design, like human cell connection. But nowadays it's nothing like human brains. I would say just 1% or less than 1% similarity. But does AI has to be human-like? So nowadays, this is sort of like relevant to the definition of artificial general intelligence, or sometimes you hear people talking about weak AI versus strong AI. So nowadays, pretty much everything, I would say everything, not just pretty much everything, is still weak AI that performs a single task and cannot learn from experience, cannot reason. And, if you look at OpenAI, since 3 years ago, they are claiming AGI, artificial general intelligence, but nowadays it's still getting better and better. And I don't even know what AGI means for them, but that's sort of the idea of what AGI is that what we truly want for an artificial general intelligence is that something that reach human level intelligence and have a self-aware consciousness and solve multiple tasks rather than one single task and can learn and plan. So this is not yet possible for nowadays AI. Nowadays, you have span classification, you have even Siri, that sort of like understand your commands and do something on your phone, but just that without any additional reasoning or learning ability. But now you can think about OpenAI. It sort of have that sense of, ability to do a bunch of different tasks without, being, trained on just one single task. But, think about the learning ability and the planning ability. It cannot sort of like learn from all the feedback it gets online. And, it doesn't have a really good, long-term planning and reasoning ability. And it doesn't also have self-aware consciousness, even though this is debatable because someone claimed they have. But anyway, this is AGI. So, sort of like relevant to Turing tests, there are different AGI tests. So, Turing tests, as you can see from the Chinese room thought experiments, that this can lead to sort of like a very stupid AI that just do this translate thing perfectly, but it doesn't have any thought of understanding of the actual machine translation. So, think about some robot that can just read the dictionary and just sort of like respond boringly to your prompt. That doesn't actually have any understanding what you are talking about. So there are also a bunch of different AGI tasks. So this can give you a sense how bad current AI is. So, in 2010, this is like the coffee test. Can the AI make a cup of coffee after entering an average home? So this is like a physical AI. Find the coffee machine and coffee, add water, find a mug, and brew the coffee by pushing the proper buttons. Never done. I doubt it will be done in 10 years. I guess 10 years could be possible in some sense because, nowadays, all the robots, they have like navigation and it does have visual recognition. And potentially, brewing shouldn't be the hardest one. And nowadays, you also have like robot arm control that you can sort of like grab objects, even though grabbing the coffee machine, it's not a pot. So anyway, but you have to add water. So you require to sort of like get the water and then pour it into the coffee machine. And there's the robot college student test. Can the AI enroll in a university, take classes like humans, and earn its degree? And so there's some recent study that claim that, OpenAI, the latest model, O1, is it called O1? Yeah, so I think they claim it can pass the college test on biology and some of the math class. So, if you think about it that way, it's sort of past this 50%. But, the other way to think about it is that, human are not like robots. We are not, just feeding into a bunch of data or text into our brain, and then we sort of like understand how it works. We go to class and we look at the slides, we watch YouTube, we do assignments, we do a bunch of things so that we learn. And so this is still non-existing in most of the AGI system that we know about. So, grounding these robots or AGI system with the real life experiment is still something that hasn't been done yet. And then the IKEA test, I love this. Can the AI control a robot to assemble an IKEA furniture correctly by reading the instructions? And, interestingly, I guess some of us will be in some trouble, especially some of the IKEA furniture are known to be very tricky to build. But that's interesting. At least it has to sort of like look at the instruction and sort of find the part and then visually know which part correspond to the ones on the instruction. And then you have to assemble it. And then by assembling, you sort of need to have the physical understanding of the world, and you need a world model that has the physical, understanding of gravity, understanding of physical rules, or how you sort of like screw stuff. And the last one is a bit more aggressive. I don't think we can do it for us, but can the AI make $1 million on the retail web platform in a few months with a 100K investment? So I don't think human can do it, but this is sort of like the AGI task people are thinking about, that how can we sort of like push the limit of artificial intelligence? And that will also bring us back to the definition that I like the most. But before that, this is sort of again the four different ways of thinking about what AI is, and there are like two dimensions of it. Well, thinking about music, we haven't been talking about music since 30 minutes ago, but thinking about music, when we are sort of like looking at Suno, Suno does something, and think about whether it has to be human-like. The Suno has to be writing the music in a way similar to human, or as long as it generate some music, write some lyrics, and synthesis something, then it's fine. It's sort of like AI, and is that the AI that we want? And on the other hand, think about thinking versus acting. Nowadays we have all sort of different AI music software. Think about AI auto mixing. Does he have any thinking inside it, or it's just like simply just like mimicking the distribution of your data? Well, what is your expectation of a real AI? Thinking versus acting. An AI needs to know how to think versus an AI doesn't need to know how to think. And human versus AI. An AI needs to behave like a human, and AI doesn't need to behave like a human. I guess we can do I just have a random idea that we can do a poll now, and let's see how it goes at the end of the semester. So I guess, what do you think about this? Does AI need to know how to think, or it just need to know how to behave, how to act, or how to just, the outside word of it needs to be intelligent, but it doesn't matter how internally how it thinks? Anyone on the first one? Cool. 9. Are you on team A or team B? Okay, 10. Okay, cool. So we have 10. And for the second one? Cool. 3. I feel like we have more than 13 people. Do we? Okay, I will keep a record here for future reference. How about the other one? Does AI need to behave like a human, or it just need to, sort of show that intelligent behavior, and it doesn't need to be human-like? Who's on team A? AI needs to behave like a human? No one does? Cool. And doesn't need to behave like a human? Okay, cool. I guess you are sort of like biased for that iRobot clip, likely, no. Cool. Well, this is sort of like playing the definition game, but it's sort of a way that you can think about how there are different definitions of AI, and whenever people talk about AI, someone talk about AGI, artificial general intelligence, and sometimes you're not talking about the same AI as they are thinking about. So it's sort of a way to think about what the scope of AI is and what we expect from AI. And this is like the question is like, what is your expectation of a real AI? But now if we change this question into what do we need from an AI system for now? Then things this come, you might have a different answer of it. Maybe AI doesn't need to know how to think, because if you want to just use that AI tool, where you care, if you need to know how it thinks for certain application. But think about medical applications, think about certain admission. Some companies are now doing AI recruiting, and potentially some of the graduate schools or college will be using AI in part of their decision making. Then in this sense, AI needs to know how to think. So, it's sort of like change over different scenario that what is our expectation of a real AI and how do you even define real AI. But anyway, this is sort of the way to think about AI. And to me, I didn't vote, but to me, this is the definition that I like the most. AI is the study of how to make computers do things at which, at the moment, people are better. So, over the past, I think my definition of AI just keep changing, even though I do AI for several years. But I feel like my understanding of AI or what people refer to AI just keep changing. And, think about, 1997. I mean, I was just born then, but 1997, think about, it's the first time that we have the IBM, what's the system called? Deep Brew. Deep Brew just be the grandmaster. I think the word champion at that time. And so this is sort of like people are thinking about, yeah, playing is the AI. And fast forward to 2016, now we are playing Go with the AI. So AlphaGo finally sort of like beat humans, and again over time. There's a Netflix documentary that you can look at. It's pretty cool. But sort of like change our platform to expectation of an AI is that can AI play Go? But now once sort of like AI conquer Go, now people are thinking about can AI play games? Can AI do something even crazier? So 20 something, we might see that AI can play strategy game, real time. YouTube. I think there's this link at the bottom. You can click on that. This is an ongoing project at DeepMind. It hasn't reached human level, but it's pretty good. If you're first day playing StarCraft, I don't think you will beat it. But you can definitely beat it if, after several months of training. But that's sort of the idea. People are just keep pursuing what AI means in this definition. So that's what I like about this definition. Think about AI music as well. In the past, we are thinking about, can we do Baccarat? Can we do, singing voice? Can we do some simple melody generation? But once we sort of like get that done, and we are thinking about, can we do, multi-track music? Can we do multi-instrument music? And nowadays, people are thinking about, can we do symphony writing? How can we sort of like without much training to write a symphony from scratch? So that's what people are thinking about AI nowadays. Another thing that I want to talk about, we will go over this likely in the next several classes, but I want to sort of like disentangle these words earlier. We will see the definition, and lots of the system that we talk about will likely be in deep learning. But anyway, AI versus machine learning versus deep learning, they are sort of different, but you will see a constant interval. I don't know why. So maybe we are in the next interval, 2014, maybe maybe we'll see something else. But AI is the broadest definition of it's basically every algorithm that exhibit intelligent behaviors like humans. This is one of the definition, but there are different definitions. But anyway, anything that's intelligent. And then machine learning is something that people use interchangeably with AI, but that shouldn't be the case. Machine learning is just a subset of AI that show intelligence through learning from data. And there's a bunch of non-machine learning AI algorithm. If you look at genetic algorithm, it's sort of like an optimization. Well, so, a fun fact, not a fun fact. It's like, the Shinkansen in Japan, it's not the latest anymore, but the previous latest generation of Shinkansen is using the I think N700. It's actually the shape of the train. Let me see if I can find Shinkansen. I should prepare a slide for that. It's not this. Yep. So this weird nose is actually designed by the genetic algorithm, which is not machine learning. It's sort of like fall into the search optimization scenario. And it's sort of machine learning in some sense, but it's more broadly the AI scenario. And so AI also covers search, optimization, and planning, reasoning that potentially doesn't have to be learning from data. And now the last one, nowadays, even more confusing. People are always just thinking about, deep learning equal AI, which is not true. There's a bunch of stuff that deep learning cannot do. Deep learning is still sort of like very limited in its application, even though it's very powerful. That's why people are using it. But, deep learning is just a type of algorithm that learn from data using deep neural networks. So this sort of like bring us to an overview of what a modern AI system is like. You will see this in the future again and again, that data always play the key role in nowadays Gen AI system, because these Gen AI system are usually based on deep learning. We will talk about deep learning and machine learning in the future, but the idea is to give you the big picture of it. Whenever you read the news, why OpenAI is not, why OpenAI is offering free access for you. Any thought on that? Why did it sort of like give you 2 years of free access to it? Sure.
It's to like train on you, basically.
Yeah. So how does that work?
Because you're like interfacing with it, so then like it just gets more opportunities to like suck in your data from like the things that you say to it, but also it can like just have practice with like interactions.
Yeah. But how does it know whether it's good or bad? If you play ChatGPT, you likely notice that this is thumb up, thumb down, right? So that's exactly what OpenAI is doing, and that's why they offering free for you, because they are collecting those data, and that's why OpenAI is now having the lead in these all different Gen AI system. So nowadays we will cover it later, but these Gen AI system is that you can do pre-training. You just train on all the data you collect, all the Wikipedia, all the whatever news, whatever thing, you just grab it. We will talk about copyright issue later, but you just grab it, and anyway, you figured out some way to train it, and then you have this system, but this system just know how to generate text. It's not, conversation. So one thing these chatbot needs is to know how to chat rather than, just doing it in the Wikipedia way. So, if you ever try Gemini, then Gemini is more the Wikipedia thing. You chat with Gemini, or in the past you talk with Siri and Google Assistant, it's like very standard reply that just sounds like the first line of Wikipedia. But ChatGPT is a bit different, that it just sort of like has some chaotic nature inside it. So that's because it's trained on some of the conversational data. Partly they collected before, but largely they collect online with the user. And there will be a lot of different issues arise from that. Potentially people might not be doing the right thing that you expect. That is like maybe trying to break the system, especially in the beta test. But the other thing is about the human preference. Whether this is a good response, whether this is a bad response, that's the most valuable one. And that's why OpenAI is having the lead currently, because it has sort of like a year that none of the competitor has access to that amount of data. And now, all the companies release their chatbots, and now they are all collecting different, feedback. So, the lead is getting sort of like closed. But, that's why OpenAI was winning at the beginning. Cool. So, I guess the only thing I want to talk about in this slide is that, the data thing is the key difference from traditional AI. So, think about the Turk, think about whatever traditional AI system. It doesn't necessarily need to have a lot of data. Usually the iconic, the most representative traditional AI is sort of like a rule system that you sort of think about. You're writing some rules that, when you see something, you do this. When you see another scenario, you do that. And so it doesn't necessarily need to have a bunch of data, that you can sort of just program the system to do that. But this is the way that you can think about how deep learning work, is that we have data, we have the deep learning model, and we have the use case. And so think about, ChatGPT, the data is everything in text, just text in the world. They scrape almost everything on the world, the www, but everything public. There are also deep web, but there are also closed forum articles that they have no access to, but it's sort of already scrap the whole open internet mostly, and people are discussing that we are running out of data. And model wise, it's based on transformer, and it also based on reinforcement from human feedback. That's the thing that we talk about why you need thumbs up and thumbs down. How do you use that to fine-tune these model? And use case is a chatbot. So this is the way that you should think about how these model work. And finally, nowadays AI sort of like go beyond analytic AI into Gen AI. So these should be very familiar for you. These just look AI, so AI. So these are generated by Adobe Firefly, I think 2 years ago, and I pretty like it. Nowadays, if you go on Adobe Firefly, it's a different style and it's less chaotic. I like the chaotic nature in the past. But the idea of Gen AI is that it's different from analytic AI in the sense that we are sort of trying to create something new, potentially new, or potentially just morphing two different things together. And we can talk about how creativity is defined, but I believe Gen AI has a lot of application, potentially just automizing part of your creative process that's too trivial or too routinary, then it could be very helpful. Anyway, in terms of Gen AI, this is one thing that we can check. So this is like deepfake.
I am not Morgan Freeman, and what you see is not real. Well, at least in contemporary terms, it is not. What if I were to tell you that I am not even a human being? Would you believe me? What is your perception of reality? Is it the ability to capture, process, and make sense of the information our senses receive? If you can see, hear, taste, or smell something, does that make it real? Or is it simply the ability to feel? I would like to welcome you to the era of synthetic reality. Now, what do you see?
Well, you know, he said he's not Morgan Freeman. So this is the behind making of it.
I am not
Um,
Morgan Freeman, and what you see is not real. Well, at least in contemporary terms, it is not. What if I were to tell you that I am not even a human being? Would you believe me? What is your perception of reality? Is it the ability to capture, process, and make sense of the information our senses receive? If you can see, hear, taste, or smell something, does that make it real? Or is it simply the ability to feel? I would like to welcome you to the era of synthetic reality. Now, what do you see?
well, what you see here is the combination of two technology. Even though now it's called DFAC, but the underlying tech is two things. So one thing is voice cloning that you have some model that learn from Morgan Freeman's voice, that you have a bunch of data and and sort of like train this model that can just say something given the text to sounds like Morgan Freeman. And the other one is the talking head synthesis. So as you can see,
Welcome
they
you
are
to the
highly
era of
synchronized, because this is the input to the system that to enable that synchronize talking. You sort of need that technique so that you can sort of like translate every nuance on the facial expression and the lip movement and even the slight gesture on your head to the whatever actor or human that you are synthesizing. So this is the combination of two tech, and you sort of give you the sense what current AI technology is like. This is like 2021. So I think I don't know where the slide was, but it used to have another clip for Barack Obama talking about the same thing, and it was pretty bad in 2018, and now it's 2024. Things are getting better and better. So anyway, Gen AI has been impacting a lot of things. These are some examples that Gen AI for visual arts. This class is beyond Gen AI, but this sort of give you sort of like the frontier what AI is doing, and how Gen AI is sort of like challenging our definition of AI and pushing the boundary of what we expect from AI. That's sort of related to the definition of AI that we were talking about. So these are now pretty old. So this is 2022, not too bad. So AI makes the magazine cover. And this is an AI art that sent to a contest, actually a state fair in Colorado, and somehow it won the first prize in digital arts at Colorado State Fair Fine Arts Competition. And so there's a bunch of news on this that eventually the competition sort of like retract the prize, but the idea that at that time people sort of like submit this work, and all the judges couldn't tell that this is sort of like AI generated. Even though there are some signs, but it's very hard at that time to just claim that, accusing that this is AI generated. But also the other question is that, if it's digital arts, if it's creative category, we can do, image editing, we can do all sort of thing. Does AI fall into that? How should we treat AI art in this definition? And at MoMA, this is pretty cool. There are some video, but it's a live, AI generated fluid sort of video. Anyway, and that the last one is photograph. It also did the same thing as the one in the middle. It actually won the Sony World Photography Award in Creative Open category. And anyway, at the end, they canceled the award, but that sort of give you a sense that in some of the creative, the boundary of digital arts or even photography, it's very hard to it's very hard for humans in some case to sort of like see whether something is generated by AI. So these two are purely generated by AI. Cool. Any questions on this? I mean, it has been a debate over time. Nowadays, I bet, even in all the different competition, everywhere you will see something like this. And last year, 2024, February 2024, this is sort of the then state of the art. I think it's pretty much still state of the art, mostly. Gen AI for video generation. So you can see there's no sounds, but at the movie gen, nowadays people are looking into how to add sounds and add sound effects, sound design, and potentially music to that. But this is sort of like the state of the art, what it's like. It's not too bad, especially when you don't zoom it in, then it just look not too bad. So they bring us to the first homework. So the first homework is sort of like a warm-up. It should be pretty fun, and it won't be graded as you expect. So anyway, there will be a bunch of interesting images and some audio files, recordings, and there are also music. We can listen to one of them, and your goal is to guess whether it's real or fake. Where's my cursor? So does it work? Doesn't work.
The objective of the nation has greatly changed in 3 years.
Whether that is President Kennedy.
We meet at a college noted for knowledge, in a city noted for progress, in a state noted for strength.
I put it yesterday, but I forgot whether it is real or fake. So anyway, you will see.
Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote. If you're able to vote early in your state, vote early. If you're able to vote in person, vote in person. Vote whatever way is the best way for you.
Well, some of you might heard that, but it could be fake. I don't know. And there's also, I think it's the file is too large. But anyway, this is Drake song, potentially fake, potentially real. But the idea is that you will just listen to a bunch of it, and there will be human face, it will be images, there will be art paintings, but the idea is to sort of like test yourself and questioning about life, I guess. About why we are living in this era that whenever something pops up, the first thing you have to think is whether it's AI generated. But that's sort of the era that we are living today, and things are getting better and better. It's becoming more challenging than ever to sort of like detect AI generated content. And even I tested myself, I was pretty bad in the things that I'm not familiar with, these faces are, someone you don't know, then it's very hard for us to detect. But, the Pope, Mark Zuckerberg, maybe it's much easier. This is Monet painting, but, the style of Monet or, Van Gogh, then you might be familiar with, but something that you are not familiar with is always pretty hard. Anyway, the key is that don't worry, you will be graded by completion, of course, instead of correctness. But anyway, instruction will be sent by emails and released on the course website. And we will have Grayscope. So whenever you find time, check if you can access Grayscope. If not, we'll figure out some way. I think I can grant you some access code, but it should be automatically sync with Canvas, even though we don't have Canvas. Due next Wednesday, late submission, 1 point deducted per day. Cool. I haven't prepared the actual instruction yet, but it will be released by Wednesday. Cool. Any questions?